Hey folks, I'm sitting here on the interstate. I'm stuck in a wreck, so I figured I'd do some review. So many of you guys know, if you follow my Facebook page, I spent this weekend at K&M Precision in Finger, Tennessee. I got in 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on Friday. We all hung out. They have a really nice bar area that I posted a picture of, lounge area for the people there. Pretty nice. They have a very nice classroom, well designed, very conducive to instruction. They have a pro shop that has pretty much every piece of Armageddon gear that you could ever need if you forget something. Very well laid out place. The entire place is perfectly remodeled. Obviously Shannon has spent a tremendous amount of money on this facility to make it what it is. The ranges are beautiful. They do have cars and stuff like that on them, but they're not what I've seen in some places where the cars look like they're battle ridden and put away after a firefight with the military. So that's kind of the start of it. So I get in Friday night, I see the lounge area. I get into the bunkhouse again, remodeled. The floors are beautiful, the woodwork, the bunks are great. They have American made kind of little mattresses in them. Pretty decent mattress. I mean, I'm a big dude. I was not uncomfortable on the mattress. Used a sleeping bag for the trip, pillow. The really nice kitchen in there, refrigerator, stove, toaster, Keurig, regular coffee maker. It's pretty awesome. I'll put a brief video I did of the bunkhouse in here, so you guys can kind of get an idea what that looks like. So day one, we get up, we start at 8 a.m. We start in the classroom, kind of talk about the basics of shooting, kind of the basics of precision shooting. We did 2 classes, went out to the range, primarily confirm zero, and so that Shannon and the guys could have an idea what type of groups you can shoot. He makes a point of if you're, his thing he kept saying is, if you're a 1 MOA shooter, 80% of the time, I can expect a 1 MOA shooter to be 1 MOA 80% of the time. If you're a 3/4 MOA 80% of the time, you're 3/4 MOA 80% of the time. You're not always going to shoot the best group that you're capable of. And that was kind of an important thing, because, I mean, lots of people, you sit down on the bench, you shoot a group, and like, oh my God, I shot, I posted one the other day, 0.27 inch group at 100 yards. Can I do that every time? No. I don't expect to. So we sat down. I guess we fired 25 rounds doing zero. We were doing all 5-shot groups. He was working with people, moving their scopes. His team, Mark, Matt, Jason, they're working with people, moving their scopes, setting their elevation, adjusting windage. The cool part, after you got done all this, he helped, and his crew helped zero all of your turrets, so you could work the rest of the training course. So we kind of got back inside, and we were going to do lunch, and we real quickly, tornado warnings started popping up. And so we went down, cleared all the gear off the range, came back inside, and we did like class after class after class, which he, rightfully so, he said, we never do this. He said, but beings that were, under tornado warning, and we had massive thunderstorms and massive amounts of rain, and I never felt unsafe in the facility, but, I think they did have a tornado that they said was 10-15 miles north of us. So we did classes, and in all the classes, the instructors are great. Jason is hilarious. The stuff he says, you'll just be like, well, yep, he really did just say that. We had a kid in our group, and Jason and all the guys did a phenomenal job of keeping themselves PG. So it's great, but we all really had a blast, even though we were sitting there in a classroom, and Shannon said, and they don't like doing that. They typically teach a chunk, and then you go out and shoot the chunk that they taught. You teach another chunk, you go out and shoot the chunk, and so that you're practicing right then and there what they teach. We were a little different because of the severity of the storms. So we started at 7 a.m. this morning. Got up earlier, normally started at 8, got up at 7. Shannon and his crew were all there. Everybody was ready to rock and roll. We did a couple minutes in the classroom, kind of talked about what the program was going to look like for the day. Hopped on their little sport utility wagon things they have, the mules and whatnot, and immediately headed down to the 1,200-yard range. And he had us confirm our zero, at 100 yards, make sure everything was still good, make sure nothing shifted. And we started banging away. And he said, guys, we're going to start working it. And him and each instructor pulled a group of 4 or 5 guys. He worked us through 400, worked us through our dial-up 500, worked us on out to 1,000 yards. And it was really great to hear, because some of the guys had some different calibers, so they had some different issues. I was using 6.5 Creed. Guys next to me were using 6x47s, so they were getting a little bit flatter trajectory than us. The guy down from us was running a 308, so he was actually hitting what they call the transonic zone. We talked about that a little bit, actually right at 900 yards. So even once we hit the 900 yard area, he was shooting these awesome, really tight, small groups, 400, 500, 600, no bigger than a fist. He was just hammering them. 900, he was struggling to keep him on the plate. And, that's kind of when they did a little talk with us about what transonic does, and, the fact that your ammo has like an average and extreme spread, and why, even though technically if our ammo averages X velocity, we should be able to hit, we're technically not necessarily in transonic till, let's say, 920, 930 yards. But the ones that are in the low end of your extreme spread might be transonic at 895 yards. And it was just an interesting conversation that I'd never really thought about, the averages and extreme spreads and what it can do for your velocity and ballistics charts. Tremendous amount of conversation between that. Going out to 1,000 yards. The first time I've ever shot anything at 1,000 yards. And his crew had me dialed up. I went 5 for 5 on him. I whacked a really nice tight little group on the big plate. He had me move over to a 9.5 inch circle, proceeded to, ring 2 dead smack in the center of the circle. Just an incredible feeling that these guys, had us all feeling. Really amazing that the fact that after a day of classroom instruction, a couple hours of zero, and that morning on the range, that we are now hitting at 1,000 yards consistently. So it was a great feeling working with these guys. I was really, really stoked about that. So from there, we instead of working dial-ups, he had us kind of work some drills where we were using our holdovers. They spent a lot of time really talking to us about dial-up and ballistics and holdovers and what really happens and goes on and stuff like that. That was awesome. From there, we went to shoot at the unknown yardage. You had to do some kind of calculations and figure out where it was, dial up, hold over what you want. Then we spent some time on the movers. They have these cool movers that move at 300 or 500 yards. I learned some of the, I run a SIG Tango 6. I learned some of the disadvantages that I have with that is I don't have tenths or 2/10 markers on my main reticle. I have lots of markers when you go off of the main set of crosshairs that mark me out in tenths and 2/10 and stuff like that. But on the main crosshairs, I do not have them. I was pretty much missing every other shot at 500 yards, and part of it is I was trying to estimate my lead, and I couldn't estimate very accurately because I didn't have very accurate cross marks on my main reticle. So one of the coaches, Mark, sat down and kind of looked through my scope and was like, yeah, dude, I see what your problem is. He's like, you're hitting everything else you're aiming at, and you're pretty much missing, every other shot at 5. Well, here's why. And so he was kind of able to walk me through what my other options were with using some dial-up, using some holdover, and then using other sets of the reticle that I have in that DevL that gives me good tenths and 2/10 as I actually got down deeper in the reticle. And he's like, yeah, so this is what you want to do next time. And he really spent some time talking to me one-on-one about how I can work through that. At the end of the day, we finished today with kind of shooting competition. I had some issues with wind, didn't hit quite all the targets I want, and the mover, the mover at 500, I just completely struggled with. I wish he'd had that conversation with me earlier in the day, but he wasn't coaching me through that part. And then he noticed that I was missing, so then he wanted to talk to me when he had a free second and work me through. So that was awesome. Shooting, I think out of 77 possible hits, I had 59. The winner had 61. So I know I dropped 5 right on the mover off the get-go, and then I shot the wrong plate once, so there's 6. 500 yard, they had a small circle. I was eating wind. I couldn't get my wind call on, so I dropped another 4 shots on that one. So right there, I dropped a bunch of shots, and the wind one I couldn't even predict. I couldn't tell you where I was. The mover, it was funny because I could tell you where I was hitting. I'm hitting in front of it. I can tell where I'm hitting. I could see it. They would talk to me about it, and even if I got sloppy on the trigger or I got sloppy on my sight hold, I got to the point I could tell where I was hitting, which is really cool. So overall, the experience here with K&M, after taking this class, if you're debating a class to learn to shoot long range, whether the long range is for hunting, whether the long range is for PRS, whether the long range is you and your buddies like to go out and bang steel at 600, 700, 800, 1,000 yards for fun, is something to do together. These guys are awesome. They're professional. They're going to treat you like a professional. They have very high expectations, which, that's one of the things we tell everybody is, the class is going to be driven off of your expectations that you hold. The expectation was that you were banging the steel at 1,000 yards. It wasn't that, well, maybe we'll get you there. The expectation was that you are hitting the target. And they weren't okay if you weren't. They worked with you. They sat with you. When it came time to it, they made sure that somebody was looking after you if you were struggling with something. I haven't met a better group of instructors. These guys are absolutely phenomenal. The facility, the 1,200 yard range is just amazing. It's immaculate. The shoot house that they have set up is just awesome. They have, targets in the cars there, and like I said, the cars don't look like they're battle leftovers. They actually are in pretty decent shape sitting out there. Lots of plate racks. They have lots of different things that you can do. They have, ranges where you're shooting at varying elevations. The 750 yard range, you're talking a tremendous amount of drop. So, even though you might be dialing in a 650, 690, 700 yard shot, 750 yard shot, you have to realize that it may go a bit high because it's really only 740 yards or 730 yards because you're 50 foot downhill. So, all these things that they talk about and they talk you through and they show you and then they have you shoot them. It was just one of those experiences that if you get a shot, you get a chance, you want to shoot long range, I can't recommend enough that you guys go see them. I'm just utterly impressed. I talked to them. I said, if you do a 4-day class in July, I'd love to have it. Where their 4 days are, I can't make it work with my schedule. I'd love to. There's, after spending a weekend with them, I know so much more of what I don't know, but at the same time, I walk away knowing so much more. I'm so much more confident in where my gun's hitting. I'm so much more confident in what I'm doing. I'm so much more confident in the ability to go prone, to get into position that I need to help form a very, very stable shooting position. We did some shooting off the hood of a car. So I learned some things with that. I used the bipod. The bipods bounce all over the place on the hood of a car. The feet on the bottom of my bipod are fairly hard. They're not rubber. Every shot, the gun, boom, it would just bounce. I think if I went to do it again, I think I'd use my bag. I think I've got one of the game changers that mount on my Arca rail. I think I'd throw that on there. I'd use the bag on the hood. I think I'd have a better chance of having it not bounce and wobble and shake everywhere. So just having the opportunity to do that and experiment in a safe manner really was awesome. So again, I can't recommend K&M enough. All the guys there, thank you. Amazing facility, real professionalism. I hope that I get to go back. I hope that I get to take another course off of them. I'm really looking forward to either doing the competition class or a 4-day class. I know I've already signed up to shoot a couple competitions, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot that I need to know. So anyhow, Bob King, I'm from Red Hill Tactical. Again, recommending K&M. Those guys are legit. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good one.